Welcome to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and it's my pleasure to be with you again today for the Soulmate Experiment and Experience. My guests are Mally Apple and Joe Dunn. They're relationship coaches, lovers, and best friends. And when Mally and Joe met 11 years ago, they experienced a deeply profound feeling of connection. And as the love and passion between them continued to grow, they eventually dedicated their relationship to discovering how to continually create a magical life together. And their intention with all their work is to teach singles and couples how to create and sustain exciting, compelling, and deeply connected relationships. Where do you sign, right? Their best-selling book, The Soulmate Experience, a practical guide to creating extraordinary relationships, won a 2012 International Book Awards Gold Medal and a 2012 Living Now Awards Silver Medal. And the book has been called a relationship guide masterpiece, a catalyst for transformation in life, relationships, and self. Inspiring, motivational, and truly remarkable. Mally and Joe's most recent collaborations are the 52 Prescriptions for Happiness, a year of inspiration for the body, mind, and soul, and the audio release Mantras for Making Love. And they're currently at work on their second book in the Soulmate Experience series. This one's called The Soulmate Lover. So welcome, Mally and Joe.
Thanks, Jamie.
You're here. You know, it's so funny. I said right before we went on air that the two of you are squished so close together so you can be visible in the video thumbnail. And this is proof in and of itself, visual proof of how connected you are.
We sit like this all the time.
Without cameras.
I love that. I just love it. Exactly the same thing that I always did with my husband. So tell me about how you two met, because I know your story is a little unusual, and we're all just chomping at the bit to hear a good love story. So go for it.
You know, we met online, actually not through one of the typical channels, but through Craigslist. And
horrors.
What were you? Wait a minute. What were you selling on Craigslist?
I guess me, huh?
Yeah. Really?
I loved Craigslist because, unlike the traditional sort of idea of, you know, defining what you want and knowing exactly what you're looking for, and I knew none of that. I had come to this place where I just trusted the universe was going to figure out what my next step was in terms of relationship, and I let go of any of that. So I couldn't go on to, you know, Match.com and fill out boxes. I'd look at those check boxes and I'm like, I just can't define. I don't know. So the universe did well.
The universe said, forget boxes, go on Craigslist.
I think we had to go with Craigslist because, you know, I had certain ideas in my head about who I'd want to meet and what I was attracted to, and, you know, the one thing that I wasn't attracted to, Jamie, was redheads.
Wait a minute. Isn't Molly a redhead?
She certainly is. Now, this is going back, you know, almost a dozen years. So, but at the time, that was this idea. I just wasn't attracted to redheads. So this, you know, this opportunity to meet and connect and really go deep with this relationship that we were starting to develop, you know, it was great because I didn't get a chance to see her and rule her out right away because she's a redhead.
Because there's no pictures.
There was no pictures.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Like the old-fashioned, you know, when people used to do personals, and they would just write to a box at the newspaper,
Yes.
and you would form an emotional connection first. And you know, there's this classic study about a man and a woman who were in a hotel. This is true, and they were stuck in the elevator during a power failure, and their initial feeling when they met each other was, oh, you're not my type, I'm not physically attracted to you. But by being stuck and having the opportunity to speak, they discovered how compatible they were. So in a way, that forced them to get past the initial, I'm ruling you out on the basis of physical traits.
This and this, yes. And
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And it would have been the same for me had I defined what I'd looked for. One of the things I'm sure, you know, having have several degrees, I would be looking for somebody with a college education. He would be ruled out instantly.
Oh yeah, yeah, because it don't make no difference.
One of the wisest people I've ever met, but I wouldn't have known that. So
absolutely, you get all caught up in the outward trappings. Oh, you have to have this size bust and these many degrees, and these are all outward trappings. The soul knows none of these things.
Exactly,
Right,
exactly. That our minds cannot define what our soul is looking for.
Right.
It's interesting,
Right.
Jamie, that nowadays, every time I see a redhead, my head turns.
I get that. I do. You know, it's funny because
Too,
a
so I
lot of a
yeah.
lot of shrinks will tell you, and this is like the party line, but I'm not a normal shrink. We already have established that. But the party line is there's no such thing as soulmates, and psychologists think, oh, it's a terrible term because then it sets people up for disappointment. You know, now you're expecting this perfect, other half, the missing part of your soul, and you're disappointed if you don't find it. And so the science, behind psychology says it doesn't exist. But I am living proof of the truth of the soulmate and the existence of a soulmate, because from the time I was a young girl, you guys, I had a vision of my life partner. I mean, I saw the man fleshed out in full detail. And so as a result, it's a very unusual thing. I just said, I'm not going to date I'm just going to wait till the guy appears. And he did appear on the first day of my freshman year at Vassar. And the minute I met him, I had the most bizarre experience. He was the chair of the Department of Sociology, and I'd been shut out of all the sections. And I walked into his office, and I literally had an out-of-body experience. I felt my soul shooting at high speed through a tunnel to the end of my life. And I get this message, remember every aspect of this meeting, he's going to be everything to you one day. And then I shoot back into my body, and I forget the whole thing, and 4 years passes before we become lovers.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? But so I totally get the soulmate experience, and it's a feeling. Did you guys get that feeling the minute you met each other? You just had like the French call it un coup de foudre, which is a crazy blow. Like did you get that? Like we know, or did your discovery develop gradually?
Long before we met. We didn't meet for several weeks.
But you knew.
There was so much synchronicity
in
the
dialogue. It was absolutely crazy. And one of the things, the reason we titled our book The Soulmate Experience is really because we believe that that experience is available to far more people than those who happen to meet this 1 in a billion chance meeting. That there's things you can do to open yourself to other people, just like the idea of not defining what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And it's also said that we have more than one soulmate, because a lot of people think, oh, it's one soulmate and then you're done, but we have multiple soulmates. Do you agree?
I think
Even
we have
more than that.
I think we have 7 billion.
Yeah, I mean, because and maybe your souls you're meant to be lovers, and maybe you're just meant to be together for a brief time to learn something from each other and not necessarily spend an entire lifetime together. There's all different kinds of soulmates, right?
And Jamie, one of the core spiritual principles in any spiritual practice is that this idea of we are all one. And when I feel into that, what I get is we are soulmates with everyone. It's only a matter of how much we can feel it with a certain person at this time.
Yes, I agree with you very, very much. And the thing is, it's so funny because it wasn't until after my husband left his body. That's the subject of my next Hay House book. It's called Love Never Dies, where I literally tell the continuation of my soulmate experience with my husband in spirit form. And it's the most. Wait till you read it. It's going to blow your mind. But you didn't even know what you were getting into in coming on my show. But the thing about this is that he always sent me love notes, and it kind of, I thought it was just romantic. These notes were, us together at different eras and times, obviously when we were not aware of living, and I just thought it was romantic. And then after he left his body, I get this message from him, we've always been together. And that unlike, the people who talk about reincarnation, the idea of, well, you just reincarnate and now have a series of lifetimes in a body, the message that I was getting from him is that we're all together in soul form at the beginning of time, if you want, and then God or Yahweh, whoever you believe in, decides when to put you into a body. You get one ride in a body, and then you return to spirit form where you began. So when you recognize someone that you click with, it's because you've always been together in spirit form. Now you're getting a ride together in a body, and you're going to return together into the spirit form.
Yes.
Does this make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah.
And I've always felt when I go into a place and meet somebody for new, like I start a new job, and immediately the first day there are 3 or 4 people there that there's this feeling of connection to, and I always know that I'm supposed to be here and I'm supposed to be with these people, and I can feel that. It's something you learn to open yourself to. I think everybody has the capacity to feel that. It's just whether you're tuned into that kind of information.
Yeah, and it's that sense of an instant click, or maybe I'm jumping into the deep end with you. We've always known each other, an instant feeling of comfort, you know? Also, there's the sense of reconnecting after a long-lost absence. Do you get that? You get that one sometimes?
I do. I think all of it kind of, it's like our minds are trying to interpret the feeling, but the feeling is, it's connection. It's knowing. I know this other spirit somehow.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a knowing that you can't explain. It's mysterious, which shows you it's of the divine. It's of the spirit realm. When your intellect.
What I believe is that the people who are most enlightened feel that with everyone that they meet.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, because as my husband told me in one of his many after bodily death messages, we're all one family, we're all one religion. That religion is love. Yeah.
Sounds so simple.
It is, and that's what you guys are obviously vibrating at, that level where you're just, everyone you meet is another member of your soul family. They're all connected.
And we do really think it's simple. Which is why we wrote the book, because for us it was like 4 years of no fights, nothing like that.
Not even an argument.
Nothing.
What's the matter with you? What is wrong with you?
And I know that you have a special gift with how to get into that sort of energy between 2 people and help them sort it out and open it up. And we thankfully never had to go there, but
we wouldn't know what to do there.
Yeah, that's
when
so funny.
you look at cleaner space that you create through techniques such as the ones you share, there's a continual process of continuing to open that space and make more room for that kind of connected experience that we really feel like anybody who wanted to could create that.
So, and you've been together for 11 years now. So, what was it that the 2 of you did? And I could talk to you guys for, let's say, many, many lifetimes, because obviously our souls have been together for a long time. And I only have 1 minute before I have to go to a break. So maybe we could start and then we can continue this, because you both did preparation in terms of preparing yourselves to be ready to attract this kind of deeply connected relationship. So maybe, Joe, you could just say a couple of words about what you did to prepare yourself?
Sure. Well, I mean, I have had a series of relationships that I would consider, less than stellar, and I think that was a good place to cut my teeth. But in the mid-'90s, I was fortunate enough to take a relationship course from a man and his wife who he since passed away, but it was probably the most impactful course that I ever took, and it really opened my eyes to how I'd been showing up in relationship and what I could do differently.
I'm telling you, Mally, we're going to all steal this man.
I know.
He's too cool. I'm going to take a brief break. I hate to leave you, but I'll be back in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. You're listening to Ask Dr. Love Radio with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. AskDrLove.com is the web's premier relationship advice site since 1995. Visit AskDrLove.com to search thousands of free relationship advice articles on any relationship issue you may have, or submit a question to my free advice column. And remember, this show is for you. So if you have a comment or a question for me, go to AskDrLove.com and use the contact drop-down button on my homepage. And don't be shy, because I want to help you. So take advantage of this unique opportunity to get a personal answer from me, one of today's most respected experts. And Here's my love bite. These are syndicated all over the country now. And this one is how to tell the difference between love and lust. Did you know that you should never use your Peter as a love meter? No wonder Mark is missing the mark, because every time he takes a new woman to bed, he ends up scratching his head. His big head, I mean. How can he tell if he's in love or only in lust? Time. Simple lust usually fades within a few weeks to months, while true romantic love lasts. So remember, when it comes to gauging whether you're in love or only in lust, never use your Peter as a love meter. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf of Ask Dr. Love on webtalkradio.net. Now back to Ask Dr. Love. Welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm talking about the Soulmate Experiment and the Soulmate Experience with Mally Apple and Joe Dunn. So we were talking about what you did to prepare yourself, because we don't just seem to fall into such healthy and connected relationships unless we do our own personal work and our own personal growth. That sets the stage. So Joe, you did all kinds of relationship education, really, that helped you to show up.
It was a very intensive course, and then we went on for another year or two, once a week, just following up and working on the ideas that had been taught in the course. And it was a great course. I think a lot of the information for me was sort of dormant until I met Molly, and then when we started to have these interactions, it all started to come forth. And in fact, the thing that I was so struck by Molly is that she was the words coming out of her mouth were so similar to this teacher that I'd had 20 years ago. It was amazing. I knew I was in the right place.
You were home. So you guys, this segment of my show is a short segment. It's called Dr. Love's Quickie. And no, I'm not inviting you to go off and have a quickie right now, because that wouldn't be good. But it's a quickie. We do a short segment, and so I wanted to see if we could do something fun off the cuff, like during the quickie, I always like to do something a little sexy. So do you have like a little quickie tip for us about the soulmate lover? Something yeah, baby. Lay something on me that's short and sweet for our quickie.
One of the things that we'll be talking about is the concept of sexual healing. And a lot of people think you have to go off and train and learn how to be a sexual healer, but if you're in an intimate relationship, healing each other sexually is one of the most connecting and intimate things you can do. And
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's phenomenal practice to say whatever comes up for you that you might think is a sexual problem is a sexual opportunity for us to explore and connect.
I love that.
And an opportunity that will, intensify and deepen our connection.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because the thing is, no matter who we are, no matter how much preparation we've done, we come to our relationships with some baggage, emotionally, sexually. We just do. And you are absolutely echoing my deepest heartfelt belief that we are brought together in order to help each other heal. That's the highest and most divine purpose of our intimate relationships. Yeah. And how much more wonderful to help each other heal sexually. So when you say sexually, healing, you're talking about if you've been violated in any way, or
leftover sexual shame. It could be, for me, one of the things that comes up now. So it's not just things we come into the relationship with, but aging for women in particular brings new challenges.
Oh, baby, when you take your bra off and you break your kneecap, that is a new challenge.
In fact,
no, you wouldn't know about this.
No, I don't know anything about that.
Unless you're wearing a man bra, you wouldn't know.
Not yet.
It's true. I saw Joan Rivers talk recently. She was doing a live bit, and she was up in the middle of the night, and she's walking, and she says, "Why are my slippers gray and fuzzy?" Until she realized it was her vulva that had dropped. That's what she was having to kick it out of her way, she said, as she was walking. It was the most depressing thing I ever heard.
We're not talking about that yet. Maybe 3 books from now.
Yeah.
The vulva drop. But I'm making a joke about it. But the fact is, one of the most difficult things in our culture, especially, and it's a tyranny for women. Of course, in general, the male sexual response is very visually stimulated, and women spend their lives trying to be attractive eye candy to men. But of course, as we age, things fall and slump and sag and this and that, and it is such a wounding experience, for a woman. And what you're really talking about is embracing the shifting and the dropping and the drifting within the relationship, and having your beloved help you love yourself in whatever body you're in.
Exactly, because if we're connected as souls, we just happen to be having a body right now that's going through this normal aging process. So okay, let's approach it as an adventure.
Absolutely. And this challenge I have had to face, because you don't know me, but because I was born 3 months early, I was born with some kind of an endocrine weakness. So if there's any kind of stress in my life, my body can go up to 100 or 150 pounds more in water within a few weeks. So I had to face the really the humbling, of a body that is not the kind of body that you wish you could be in, and a body that changes, and have to accept the fact that we are out of control over a lot of things, including much of the aging process. Yeah.
One of the mantras on our mantras for making love came from this, my own, approaching the aging. And Joe says something like,
these lines on your face are, what is it? A celebration of your life.
I love it.
And
Absolutely.
Something like that to me 3, 4, 10 times while I take in that idea is so...
It's so beautiful. It is so beautiful. Absolutely so healing. And this is what we all really aspire to, is how can I embrace your soul? The body is just a vessel. So I'm going to take a brief break, and I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. You're listening to Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. If you yearn to get along better with your life partner or spouse, friends, family members, and even coworkers, my latest Hay House book, Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, Dr. Love's 10 Simple Steps to Cooling Conflict and Rekindling Your Relationship, shows you how to turn conflict into connection for a lifetime of lasting love. Join the love revolution. Sign up for my free newsletter at AskDrLove.com and receive an exciting free gift, a free excerpt of Kiss Your Fights Goodbye. This is Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and if you have a question or a comment for me, submit it using the contact button at AskDrLove.com, or you can catch the archived show at webtalkradio.net. You're listening to Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. Once again, back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. Welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. We're talking about the Soulmate Experience and the Soulmate Experiment with Mally Apple and Joe Dunn. So I'm having so much fun with you guys. So let's talk a little bit about the work you did, Mally, because we heard what Joe did. What did you do to prepare you for this deeply connected soul connection?
I think the number one thing that prepared me was I grew up in a household where the L word was never spoken.
Wow.
Love.
Not Lydia.
In fact, not lesbian.
I think we came from, no, not the lesbian, and lo and behold, no, you and I have come from the same family. I know it's very, very true, yeah.
When I was a teenager and got my own car and I was driving around listening to music, I could not say the word love. So I'd be singing along to these songs and the word love would come up, which happens in pop radio about every 10 seconds, and I couldn't say word. And so in the car I started practicing making myself say that word out loud.
Oh, that's a big, big leap, right?
And I left home fairly early and definitely was on a track to self-develop, to figure out, okay, that model that they're using in that household is totally messed up and it's not working for anyone, and what could be better. And I did probably 20 years of self-study into spirituality and relationships, and totally transformed how I approach it through that.
I get the image of the two of you really traveling on train tracks that were parallel. And you know how sometimes the tracks cross, and they have that switch? So you're traveling, doing your growth and your preparation for finally coming together, and then finally your tracks met.
Yes, and I think from that moment on, doing the growth is really key to keeping this magic alive, which was my intention from the moment I met him was, okay, whatever it takes, that's the most important thing, is keep this magic alive.
I call that pulling for the team instead of the individual players, because the magic of this connected team has to come ahead of everything else. You know, and in Kiss Your Fights Goodbye, I talk a lot about this. You know, people, when they get upset, they're hurt, old scars are triggered, the hurt turns to anger. Now I'm out to defend myself and bash you. Well, I'm destroying the magic of the connection, and I am actually turning my beloved partner into an enemy instead of an ally to help me heal the old scars that are making me upset in the first place.
Yeah.
So do you guys fight at all? Do you have conflicts, or do you just literally float in the heavens?
Well, Molly tried to pick a fight one time, but I could see it coming from a mile away, and I think I just smiled because we were years into our relationship, and it just wasn't having any effect on me. And I think once I smiled and she realized,
he said, "Are you trying to have a fight?" I was like, it was hilarious. Like
but were you intentionally trying to poke him?
Tired. We hadn't slept all night. We had things we had to do. It was, you know, and I think I was falling back on what you learned in childhood. How do you deal with stressful situations?
You lash out.
Yeah. So,
you just throw a hissy fit. Right. But Joe was so evolved that he was able to observe it. You know, that's like living meditation. I see what you're doing, and I'm just going to step back and ask, is that your intent? And that was enough for you to be able to back up and say, oh, old tapes, old training.
And go and be humiliated for a few minutes, like, oh my God.
Where did I go? That is so funny.
For me, what the practice is now is, if I ever have, you know, we talk a lot in our book about, we have a chapter on letting go of expectations, a chapter on letting go of resentments. And once you've done that work and you've got a clean space, you notice when something shows up if you're paying attention. So if there's anything that starts to form, like an idea that Joe should do something.
Oh, you're screwed. Because expectations are the author of disappointment. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And resentment and anger. And the thing, the less you expect, the more you're satisfied. The more
gifts you get.
Yeah.
So, you know, our chapter is called Turning Expectations into Invitations. And that is a powerful.
I love that.
When you can see, I've got an expectation here. Okay, so let's not act on that, because acting on that is only going to produce misery. And let's find a new way. Letting go of any idea that he should do anything, I can invite him to do it. And a real invitation.
Absolutely. And when you feel invited, you're free. You're free. When you feel there's a knife at your head, you're so resentful. I don't want to give you ice in winter when you're putting a knife at my head. That's wonderful. So, and what you're really talking about, Molly, and this is your own growth, so many women make the mistake of expecting their partners to read their minds and know what they need. Then when the partner doesn't read their minds, they're hurt and they're mad.
Yes.
Then they accuse them after the fact of having made the mistake of not doing what they want. So then there's accusations and nagging and whining and complaining and guilt tripping, as opposed to just making your wishes clear. You know, not as a demand or a command, but just, this is what I would like. Now the other person is free to respond, and in a healthy relationship, we want to give to each other. It's my greatest joy to make you happy and give you whatever you wish.
And the key to that, it's a little bit, you got to take this leap, because the key is no expectation to results. If I say, I'd really love this, I've got to let go of any idea that if you don't give it to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because the minute there's that tooth in it of, and if you don't, or I'm going to be really, the minute that's in there, even if you don't say it, the other person feels the demand and feels unfree and resentful and doesn't want to give. Now we're in a power struggle. Yeah. And fighting.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a very cool thing to be able to, because we're living in a very dualistic image here of, I know what I want, but I'm detaching from it, and I can very well do without it. And it's in that air of detachment and not expecting and demanding that you get everything you want and more.
Right.
You do.
You do.
You do.
Absolutely. So when did you two decide that you were going to write a book about this, that you knew this was a really cool thing, two souls together? on a mission to help other people connect their souls. So when did it happen? Did you wake up one day and look at her and say, we got to write a book, or what happened?
It was about 4 years into our relationship when I think it was we woke up one day and we thought, wow, we have this incredible relationship. We don't have fights. We don't have arguments. Everything is bliss. So we have a decision to make. We can just keep doing this and having a great life together, or we can basically dissect our relationship, write about it, and help others have the same sort of relationship. And it was really a no-brainer to do that.
And I had been a nonfiction book editor for about 20 years at that point, and I think in terms of books. So it's just like, we've got to get this out there. And one of the amazing things about having this book now, it's been out 4 years now, and I didn't realize this at the time. It's like when something comes up a little bit for me, I'm like, wait, we wrote about that when we were super clear how to approach that, and I'll go back and look, oh yeah, well, okay. So it's actually my advice book now too, that I was like, okay.
Absolutely. They the best way to learn about a topic is for you to study it and write about it and teach it, and then you're teaching yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now we definitely want to keep the passionate side of our relationship, but our sex life is unbelievably amazing every time we're together, and I want to keep that, and so that's why we're writing this book. Okay.
That's the second one, the soulmate sex.
The soulmate.
Yeah.
The soulmate sex.
Soulmate sex.
Baby, Dr. Love gave you the title, right? So you want. The thing is, the sex is great because your heart connection is so great, your soul connection is so great, so it spills over into the sex.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not even like, a lot of people get caught in the, if I may say, nuts and bolts of, sexual techniques, do this and do that, and you're operating at a whole different plane.
You know what, Jamie? When you are coming together like the way that we talk about exploration, everything is an exploration, a constant opening exploration. New techniques come to you every day. You don't have to go read about them. You create through your connection.
You're floating. The soul just guides you where you need to go and where you want to go. It's a whole other way of... What just happened? What happened?
The soul and the libido, they guide you together.
Absolutely. Wait a minute. We have to take a break now for you to have a little fun little, I don't know, rendezvous. We'll be back in a moment. No, this isn't a real break. This isn't a real break. So talk about jealousy. Because you say the energy of jealousy may be our greatest untapped resource for infusing our relationships with passion and excitement. And when you learn how to approach and channel that energy through love instead of through fear, jealousy has the potential to contribute to your relationship in ways that you may have never imagined. So tell everybody about this, because often jealousy is a cancer for most couples that pulls them apart.
It's one of the reasons that we devoted an entire chapter to it, because it can be so incredibly toxic, and it can come so quickly and control you so completely.
Blind you in a way.
So, it's something that I've worked on for years and years and years, because I used to be raging jealous. And, I dissected what's going on for me and why is this happening. And so I came into this relationship already having those tools of what to do when it comes up and how to use it. But when we started to write about it, I couldn't really, it was so natural for me now to, when I see him looking at somebody or something like that's the kind of thing that used to trigger me. Now I just immediately, I interpret it in a whole different way that makes me totally crave him and have this intense passion for him. But I couldn't write about it too well, so some things just happen to us so that we can write. We were in a yoga class. It was at this great place. It was a temple, and we was in a circle, and we're in this yoga class. And across from Joe was this young woman from
Sweden.
She was like...
He remembers. All right.
She was 24, tall, blonde, perfect body, and they made eyes at each other during the entire class. And it was so incredible for me. I knew, because I could feel it welling up. I'm like, this is perfect. I get to figure out what I do, because this is intense. And after class, when people were going to put their mats away, Joe and this woman just walk toward each other and stand across from each other to feel whatever it is they're feeling, because Joe knows that I'm not going to stop him. from experiencing something that's come up. And I stepped out of the circle and watched what kinds of thoughts I was giving myself. And that's what jealousy, most of it comes from, is I tell myself, I'm not young enough, he's prettier, he's going to want to be with her, blah, 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 and all this crap that I could sit and then use my tools to let go of those thoughts. And so I was able to write the chapter after this experience of watching myself, and I got to walk back in and talk to these two, and especially her, and say, what is it that you saw? What is it you see when you look at him? And her description of, you know, his energy and his just his openness. I'm like, oh my God! It just made me fall in love with him all over again to hear what she saw the first time she looked at him.
This is so brilliant what you did on so many levels, because you stepped back and you observed the scene. This is my whole method that I tell people is so important, to really live every moment as though you're in a meditational state. So you observed as though you were not in it but watching it. And I love the way you said that the thoughts I was giving myself, how you took responsibility for the thoughts.
Absolutely.
Which is like what happens, you know, in the French language. They have verbs that are reflexive verbs, where they say je m'agace, je me means I make myself angry. You know, so I make myself anxious. So I make myself have these thoughts, and then of course, you know, in my method, we might connect back to, well, how does that connect to your first family? Your parents were paying attention to a sibling and not you, favoring a sibling and not you. You go back and you make the link up, and then that helps you separate then from now, so you're not so freaked out and worked up. But what was so great was how you went back in, asked her to say what she saw in him. So I was so glad to hear that you went there, because you allowed yourself to convert this into, instead of being jealous, wow, this guy's a hunk. Look at how this young woman has the hots for him, and he's mine. You know, so you converted. Amazing how you converted it, right?
Absolutely. You know, a couple of things. One, we have a course called Overcoming Jealousy, and we do take you first through exactly what you were talking about. Like, where did we learn all this crap? So that's very helpful to get that perspective. But here's another thing that's amazing.
Wait, Mally, I know you're going to be jealous, but I have to take a break.
Okay.
I'll be right back. I'll be back with you in a moment on Ask Dr. Love Radio. So you're listening to Ask Dr. Love with Dr. Jamie Turndorf. And if you have recently been through a breakup, or you're looking for a second chance, or wondering how you can reconcile with your ex, or if it's even possible after all you've been through, my book, Make Up, Don't Break Up, presents my 5-step proven plan for reconciling with your ex. And this plan was developed out of years of research working with thousands of couples at my Center for Emotional Communication. This is a proven, no hype, no nonsense method that gets right to the root of the problem and shows you how to reignite the spark and rekindle your love. For more about Make Up, Don't Break Up, visit AskDrLove.com. Now, I'm going to give you another love bite. This one is how going green can help your love life. Mary is about ready to give love the shove, because no matter what she tries, men don't know that she's alive. To turn guys on, Mary needs to turn on what I call green lights, nonverbal signals that let a guy know you're ready to go. Most guys won't approach a woman unless they're sure to not be rejected. So ladies, if you want to kick your love life into high gear, make your signals clear. Turn on those green lights and flash your pearly whites. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf of Ask Dr. Love on webtalkradio.net. And now back to Ask Dr. Love. Welcome back to Ask Dr. Love Radio. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf, and I'm talking with my wonderful guests, Mally Apple and Joe Dunn, about the Soulmate Experience and the Soulmate Experiment. And we were talking about jealousy right before we took the break. And Molly, you were about to say something that I know was absolutely thrilling. So can you come back to it? I know.
Yes. What was really amazing about that experience was, first of all, know that I stood outside that circle for an hour. They talked for an hour while I worked with those thoughts. That's how long it took me to let go of those thoughts. It was an intense process, and to get to a place of peace about it and walk back into the circle. But we were this was at a retreat, so we were there for another few days, and periodically we would see her. you know, walking to the pools or we would see her. And what was so cool was what Joe said, you know, this is a woman she was traveling around the world on her own, having all these experiences. And if we hadn't been together, you know, Joe and she probably would have gotten together and hung out. And what was amazing to me was I asked him, you know, are you disappointed that you don't get to do that? Because I'm with you.
Right.
And it was your answer to that.
Yeah, no, it didn't. I wasn't disappointed at all because, you know, by being allowed the opportunity to stand in this woman's space and just feel what I was feeling and maybe, you know, receive what she was feeling, that was enough. And
oh, that's so great. Yeah.
But not only that, Jamie, what it did was it made me love Molly so much more.
Yes.
She
gave you a gift. Yeah.
A great gift. And, you know, all it did was enhance our relationship 1,000%. You know, and I've only thought about this woman in the context of talking about the story. I never think about her. I never think, oh, I missed this opportunity. No, I was able to experience that, you know, that attraction with this woman and feel it from her in this space I knew was completely safe and completely accepting. And it was that made my love for Molly just skyrocket.
So what you're talking about is that the connection with Molly is so sacred that for you it's not worth it to go into action and just have a roll in the hay and satisfy some physical urge to whatever, clean your pipes. It was enough to know that, yes, this woman had a soul attraction to you, a sexual attraction, as many women will, and that's lovely, and that Molly loves you enough to allow you to be filled with that experience. I mean, it was such an incredible and incredibly bonding experience. And I don't think I've ever heard of a couple handle this kind of outside attraction with so much consciousness. And it was beautiful what you did for him. The contrast to this is what happens for most couples. I had a friend who was a shrink, and he went with his girlfriend to Paris. And he was walking down the Champs-Élysées, and apparently a lot of very attractive women were passing, and he involuntarily groaned or grunted at one point. Well, she took him to task. There they are, screaming on the street. Huge fight, terrible, you know? I mean, that is the polar opposite, and that's what we see happening so often. And the thing is, what you acknowledged here, Molly, is that just because we're in a committed relationship doesn't mean we're blind or that we don't feel attractions for others, but you were able to give him that space because you knew there was going to be no action.
Well, you know, I don't even know that.
Okay. You were open to the possibility wherever it would go, but because he knew you were giving him the freedom, he didn't have to go there.
Exactly. That's the discovery that now in any simple situation, right? If he's a swimmer, he's a national champion swimmer, and if he, as he often does, sees attractive women swimming next to him, and he can enjoy it, and he doesn't have to hide it, and there's no. He's free to be himself without worrying what I might think or how I might react.
Yeah. It's funny. I used to do this with my husband, and it wasn't, you know, it was just me honoring the beauty, you know, of other women. So I would say, oh my gosh, look at her, isn't she beautiful, you know? And he would say to me, he's all right. But then his way of affirming his love for me, he'd say, but she doesn't have what you have, or something, you know. Bring it back to me and our connection, which was so lovely. So lovely. I gave him that gift of freedom, brought me back this unexpected gift.
I think that's one of the things that came up when we talk about aging, that you know, I'm getting older and he's getting older, but there's plenty of beautiful, youthful bodies around if we want to look at that and go, oh, isn't that beautiful together? And not, if I don't compare myself, that is key. And that's back to, I loved your French thoughts, that it's me giving myself the thoughts that make me feel bad. It's not him having a natural attraction to somebody else that makes me feel bad.
Really.
And I tell myself,
And the passion you feel for each other that comes from the soul, if people, unless you've experienced it, it's so hard to understand. Right before we left for our final trip to Italy, you know, and I've been for 27 years. We were in the bed, and he just leaned over, and he kind of gave me a love bite on my shoulder, and he said, "I have such passion for you." You know, and I'm not in the body I was 27 years ago, and the passion is so deep. It goes beyond the physical vessel. We don't need to worry about, you know, what size we are or what shape we're. You know, it's beyond that. The soul is beyond the vessel. It's very hard to explain, but I know you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it's amazing to be with somebody who he always sees that.
Yes.
And he looks at me. He just says, "You're ageless. You just."
Because your soul is ageless, right?
Radiates.
It radiates. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, it's so painful for me because, as I said, so often this is my thing. We're given challenges. Sometimes I can be very small, sometimes I can be so heavy. And it's so hard for me to be able to say, but you know, your soul is ageless, your body is doing this, it's out of your control. And it's so funny that, you know, I sat down at a bar. I went out to Charlie Brown at a bar this weekend, and I went with my housekeeper and my friend Donna, and we're sitting at the bar, and she's talking to this 44-year-old, you know, married couple, and there's this guy who sits down next to me, hunk and a half, you know, you know, and he just starts coming on to me. Oh, you're so attractive, you're so this, but it's not even that, you know, in your own mind, women are always saying, oh, but I'm not as thin as I was, I'm not as young as I was. Men don't even see these things. They don't even see. You know, they see your soul, your essence. And if you allow your soul to radiate and you're comfortable in your own skin and your heart comes through, you're as beautiful as a young model. It's immaterial.
So many couples that we hear from, you know, the women are telling themselves, I'm too unattractive, I've gained too much weight, blah, blah, blah. And the guys are going, I just love you. I just want to get naked. I just want to have sex. You look beautiful to me. And I think we as women just have to learn to just.
I know. Women think that men want these skinny little mannequins, these stick figure models, and the men keep saying, I want them built for comfort, not speed. You know.
You know what? They want who's there with them. That's what.
I want the connection with you.
Yes, you're there. You're willing to play with me. I want you. So.
Absolutely, yeah. So what do you talk about? What is this leapfrog? You talk about playing leapfrog. So what is leapfrog? And is this a sex act?
I suppose it could be, Jamie. But in our first book, which wasn't all that much about sex, you know, it was really more a metaphor for. It's like the children's game, right? Where one of the two in the couple. You know, provides the foundation, the supporting space for the other one to take a leap to the next level. You know, and we just do that alternating back and forth. So you're always bringing your partner either up to your level or a little bit past you maybe, so that then maybe you have an opportunity to do the same thing. So
it really is what you were talking about, helping each other heal, helping each other evolve. You know, anytime one of us might be struggling with a self-imposed limitation, you know, we might design for each other a little activity to help them leap over that. And we really trust each other to do this, because it can be scary, but that's part of why it's so connecting.
You're holding the little frog in your hand with so much love. I always use that image of, imagine holding the other tenderly in your hand, and you know, their heart, their soul, everything is in your tender care. That's what we're here for.
Right.
You know, so talk to me a little bit about the Soulmate Lover. It's coming out later this year. Give us a little sneak preview of what you're going to be exploring in that book.
We have been having an amazing time working on this book because, of course,
you're practicing.
All the right experiences and all the right. We interview and work with a lot of people when we write, and they try out our ideas. So, for instance, we have a chapter called Connecting with Your Sexual Energy, and we've got activities in there that you would do on your own to connect with your sexual energy. All the way up to doing, since I know that you like this sort of thing, Jamie, all the way up to, could you masturbate before a mirror? And could you do it with having love for yourself?
How'd you know that I like that thing? That is so crazy. Where'd you get that one from? Did you read that?
We come up with these all our own. We don't read anybody else's work. We don't go. We just investigate.
Yeah.
Investigate ourselves. We go off for long weekends and.
It's a lot more fun to investigate than it is to just read somebody else's work.
Wait a minute. Investigate rhymes with masturbate. So this is.
So when we have a lot of people on the line who will try out our ideas, and so we ask them to try these things, and a lot of people had issues with some of these things. They found it difficult, and it was because of some kind of past sexual shame they were carrying around. So
there's a lot of shame around masturbation, especially for people who
exploring, okay, how do we get into that, and help people work with that, and so coming up with ways to release that, both on your own and if you're in a couple, how to help each other. Taking leapfrog to the bedroom, how do we help each other release old patterns and shame? And
it's wonderful. It's wonderful because what you're talking about here is really, it's straddling the sex therapy, department. And what's so lovely is instead of going to a sex surrogate, you're really becoming healing surrogates for each other. You are literally doing what needs to be done to help each other heal.
Yes, yes.
And that's what we're here for. So, I wanted to take a few minutes to make sure that everybody knows how to find you and how to connect with you and everything. So you say the soulmateexperience.com, which is your website, you're offering 2 free chapters. So how do people do that at your site?
So it's the soulmateexperience.com/free chapters. That's 2 of the most loved chapters from our book that people can find, get a lot out of just those 2 chapters. We have a really big community on Facebook at the Soulmate Experience, and people have met through that. No, it wasn't our intention when we started it, but because the conversations are about connection and
they're all there for the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's the people have made really lasting friendships. We've had that page for about 4 years, and it's been amazing community. So you can find us there on Pinterest, on Twitter, all at the Soulmate Experience.
I actually get the feeling of the 2 of you, in very many ways you have a ministry, and that it's like ministers working together. But normally, in a ministry, perhaps the male is the minister and the wife is his helpmate, but the 2 of you are soulmates in this ministry, using your own soulmate connection, letting your love shine to light that path for others to form their own soulmate experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I like very much what you're doing. I hope you'll come back when your next book comes out.
We'd be happy to.
Love to have you back. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the money nerve with Robert William Wheeler. He's a CPA, and he's talking about all the ways in which money touches off emotional nerves and causes problems in relationships, and we're going to be talking about that. And is there anything else you want to leave us with? We have a minute left. Any thought? Any last-minute soulmate wisdom?
I think a lot of people talk to us who are like you, have had a soulmate relationship and their partner has passed on, and they always ask, is it possible for me to experience this again? And I think you would say, as we would, absolutely.
You go for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because we have so many soulmates waiting to love us, and we're waiting to love them. So I will see you guys very soon. I enjoyed you very much. It went really fast, and I will see everyone else next week on Ask Dr. Love Radio. Take care.
Thanks, Jamie.